Okay, hi everybody. It's Joel Sadler here, your host and co-host Michael Harris. And
Hello.
hello. So today we are going to talk about maintaining consistency of state. Um, as something that's come up for me recently, and we spoke about it this week already. Actually, Mike and I during one of my coaching sessions, and Mike actually shared some stuff for himself as well. And I think one of the realities of um, life, I suppose, is the external noise and distractions and busyness and stuff that crops up. And um, there's a an exercise called Be Do Have, which is we identify who I want to be, what I want, what I do, and then what do I have. And it's all good kind of doing that exercise or thinking about that and then getting on that track. But it's actually quite easy to be derailed and get off track. For me, I find um, it can be things like sickness is a good example. For example, I get on the gym horse and the exercise horse and start that going and enjoying that, and then I might get crook. I've got two little kids; they're always bringing stuff home, and then it's very easy for that to derail me. And then I don't feel like working out. I'm crook. I might, I'm not one of those people that sort of lie in bed and sleep it off. I still keep moving, but I don't feel like exercising in that space. Um, yeah, and so I think, and then Mike, you shared something about some stuff you're working through at the moment as well, and that you went and did some work on it to yesterday and today to kind of maintain that state. What are your thoughts on that? What would be your sort of keys around maintaining consistency of state and or keeping that front of mind?
I think firstly, it's important to realize that we're going to have fluctuations.
Mm.
There's no one human being that's one-sided all the time, and so
Yeah,
it's having that understanding that there's going to be ebbs and flows in the energy, and also in consistency.
yeah,
But often, when people come to me initially, one of the first things I do with them is to really find out what their values are, and in the sense when I say values, it's really priorities.
mm,
So
mm,
it's not values in the sense of the morality, like honesty and integrity and things like that.
yeah,
It's more different areas of their life that they're focused on, that they really have importance on.
mm,
Because what you'll find is people will often inject someone else's priorities, an outside authority, into them,
yeah,
and therefore they will feel like they should be doing X, Y, Z. And when you
yeah,
get into the shoulds, it's an imperative language where you're imposing something else on yourself. And then they beat themselves up for not actually following through with the things they've injected in from someone else.
mm, mm,
And then they say, oh, I'm a failure, or I'm not doing what I need to be doing.
mm,
Why am I not doing this? And
yeah,
when you kind of lift the hood off and you get under there, everyone always does what's most important to them. So it's
mm,
not what they say, but what they demonstrate.
yeah.
And so when you actually look at what someone's priorities are, like say, for example, you're talking about working out,
Mm, mm,
if someone really doesn't have that as something that's important to them and it's linked to importance to them,
yeah,
then they're going to easily fall off that horse because it's not really what they want to be doing. There's
yeah,
less incentive to do so because innately it's not something that's actually inspiring to them.
yeah, yeah.
And so it's look at
Mm,
what
mm,
people do versus what they say,
mm,
but they will naturally always migrate to the
yeah,
things that are important to them, and they'll be consistent. This is the thing, they're consistent with those things that are important to them.
yeah.
It's because they're
Right.
naturally drawn to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there is a layer of complexity in there as well where, when so say for example my family's high on my values, right? My
Mm-hmm.
relationships with my kids, for
Mm-hmm.
example. But I learned as I grew and worked on myself and my ability to show up at home as a man and lead
Mm-hmm.
and have authentic, loving relationships with my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
Um, is that I had to work on myself and my own crap basically and I still am to get to the
Yeah.
point where I can show up, more in a more powerful state, instead of the whinging little bitch or little
Took the word
whining
right
little
out of my
boy.
mouth. I was going to drop it.
Yeah, yeah, whining little boy sort of thing. Not all the time, but in certain scenarios, it's actually. But it's easy to say that, but it's the practice is kind of what I'm meaning about keeping on track. So the family's always high on my values, but it's
Mm.
very easy if I'm not careful, if I'm tired or there's external noise, I'm busy at work, or my
Hmm.
stress tank is already, capacity tank's already at say a 8 or 9 out of 10. It's
Yeah.
quite easy to flip back into the old way of being. And so I
So,
suppose
so
what
you're
I'm
almost, if I'm right, then you're almost talking about how you're showing up versus what you're showing up in.
Yeah,
It's like a
actually, that's what, yeah,
distinction there, right?
consistency of how I'm showing up. So I've
Yeah.
already been there and I've felt it and I know it. And I think really what I'm talking about now, actually, if I'm just straight to the point, is consistency of showing up in my priorities. So we
Yeah.
spoke a little bit yesterday is what I'm experiencing now in showing up, more powerfully at home, but in the community and in the workspace and all that is that it's exciting and it's very easy for me to get distracted and pulled into other responsibilities and do this and do that. And all of a sudden my time's busy. And then
Yeah.
that creates a state of kind of chaos or almost like constant adrenaline sort of buzz, which is okay. But the problem with that, I find it has like a finite lifetime. At some point,
Hmm.
I'm gonna crash or tire out or whatever.
Well, let me ask you, what are the things you're getting pulled into that you say that you're getting pulled into?
Mm,
Because if you're getting pulled into them, it's
mm,
by choice, right? Unless it's by obligation, the perception of obligation, where you
mm,
feel obliged to because you can't say no. And that's just something that you've got in you. If it's this
yeah.
inability to say no to someone and because of the fear of being abandoned or ostracized,
Mm,
that's
mm,
different. But if it was because you're pulled to it because you just really love it, then again,
mm,
it's something that you're naturally innately going to gravitate to and say yes to because it's
mm,
higher on your values or priorities.
yeah.
So
I think it's
again,
a bit
there's
of
there's
both.
kind of like a bit of a variable there as well.
Yeah. And I think this is what I mean is that consistency. And it's probably not as simple as just being on or off the track. It's actually sort of like you can't, what's the hero's journey, isn't it? You're on the track all the time, walking towards the destination, and enjoying the journey. And it's
Mm,
not just a straight line. It's sort of like, meandering back and through. And I think, I liken it to say like walking through shrubs or like pushing your way through like debris and shrubs, like in a forest sort of thing, like kind of in that state, trying to feel my way to the right path. And I think
yeah.
what you just said, there's all of that going on. Yeah, there's a bit of kind of like, feeling of obligation. And then what happens if I say no, like I shared to you, there's opportunities coming left, right, and
Hmm.
center at the moment in my life for whatever reason,
Hmm.
related to work, business. And it's very easy to say yes, 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 but it's also quite hard to say no, 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 no in some cases for fear of letting other people down or like they owe them something and all that sort of stuff going on.
If when you were younger,
Mm,
you learnt it wasn't safe to say no or
mm,
express yourself and to have boundaries,
yeah,
and this is for most people in some fashion or form, depending on how they attached
yeah,
and the dynamics they had grown up. But if you found it wasn't safe to say no and you felt like you had to placate
mm,
and you had to lose yourself and abandon yourself
yeah,
in order to stay loved to your
yeah,
caregiver,
yeah,
that's where that often is birthed, is the inability to say no. Because if I say no, what if they abandon me? What if I'm kicked out of the tribe? That means I'm not going to
mm,
survive.
mm,
And so we learn these attachments as a young person.
yeah,
And so if then saying no meant that you're going to risk losing love,
yeah,
that there is wired into your nervous system and into your becomes a habit, gets compounded, and it kind of links to what you said, that there's a part of you when someone asks you to go do something, yes, there's
mm,
an interest in there, right? So you've got the part that
yeah,
ticks the box there that yes, this is something I kind of want to do, but there's also the other part that's at play as well of like, fuck, if I do say no,
mm,
does that mean I'm going to lose this relationship? Does it mean that I'm not
yeah,
going to be accepted? And so
yeah,
it's really getting clear on the distinction
yeah,
about what's driving then the
mm,
action or the reason that you're saying yes.
mm. Yeah, that's good actually. Yeah, I think there's a bit of everything there, but I would say definitely at the moment more the interest and excitement part of it. Like I'm really enjoying the new journey and exploring all this sort of stuff, and it's it's
Mm.
it's quite easy to um, jump in and explore a lot of new things. Yeah, so yeah, Oh, that's
But if
good.
if
Mm,
like one of the
mm,
things too, I'd say, like, we talked about be, do, have, so I'll
mm.
come back and link back to that in a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah,
But
nice.
if you have got a vision and you're on your mission, like
Mm,
at the end of the day, learning to say no, and a lot of coaches and people have spoken about this over the years, but
yeah.
learning to say no is one of the most powerful things you can do, because
Mm,
really assessing and working out, is what I'm about to do or
yeah,
embark on taking me closer or further away from the outcome that I'm trying to produce. And
yeah,
getting really, really clear with that is really important. It's
yeah,
important to take stock in that. And
yeah,
otherwise, we're at the whim of external influences, and we're kind of like a leaf
yeah,
blowing around in the wind that's just going to get blown from one level of
yeah.
certainty to the next level of certainty. And so, if someone's demonstrating more certainty than you, and they're trying to enroll you in what they're wanting to do,
Mm,
and
mm,
then you've also then got that belief structure that it's not
mm,
safe to say no, and
mm.
you're not crystal clear on the direction you're going, then it's
Yeah.
very easy to be pulled into these other pieces and dynamics.
Oh, definitely. I think for me that be to have thing you're just talking about is, I don't want to say magic bullet, but like it's just so grounding, and so it's like a plan, like I need I don't know about you or other listeners, but I need it for me, the way I think I need a bit of a plan, a
Yeah.
bit of a map sort of for where I'm going, on that
Uh-huh.
sort of playing on that hero's journey, warrior's journey, or whatever you want to call it, kind of mantra. It's sort of like, it's like a game plan. Like I love the NRL. For those that are listening, that's the Australian National Rugby League, and each coach has a game plan for the team. They
Mm.
plan and prep, and the team knows it, what they're trying to achieve. So for me, like I've realized that in the last, since I've been in sort of personal growth mode over the last 6 months, I haven't redone my be do have. It's very different. So prior, I was being grounded and balanced, um, and confident. Grounded, balanced, and confident is what I was choosing to be, show up, and I think that was a lot. The world was in a bit of a tumultuous state, so I was choosing to be balanced, grounded, and show up in that way. Now I really
Yeah.
feel that that's grown or changed to actually now I'm choosing to be a leader, choosing to be
Hmm.
a leader at home, in the community, in the world, but I haven't sat down and mapped that out as to what that means. And so I suppose when these leadership opportunities and bits and pieces come through, it's very easy, like I just said, to go looking at that, meeting that, talking about that, you're having great conversations. But before I know it, it's blooming the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard to fit everything in. So yeah, so that be to have, I'm going to sit
Yeah.
down and redo that.
So
Can
let's
you
explain
talk
what
to that
that,
a little bit more?
yeah, let's
Yeah,
explain
yeah,
what that is. So,
yeah,
first of all, if you look at it, we have to first be, right? We're human beings. And so
mm,
we have to be.
yeah,
And so what we're being is the essence of us. It's
yeah,
like you can almost look at it as a frequency or vibration that we're being.
yeah,
And so, as you said, you wanted to, perhaps you want to be inspirational, you want to be
mm,
a leader in the community. And so you can go through and you look at who you want to show up as each day, who you're being, what you're emanating.
mm,
The second part is the doing. So that's where you put your actual action motor skills into place, and the actual things you're doing on a daily basis
mm.
that link with who you're being. And so that the doing is I guess, where the rubber meets the road in the material world,
Mm,
where you're actually doing action. So it might be, okay, I'm going to, what am I doing? I'm leading my community. I'm running events. I'm,
mm,
doing whatever it is that you choose to be doing.
yeah.
And then in order from be do, you get then to have. This is the
Mm,
fair exchange
mm,
that takes place
mm.
for the value proposition that you then bring by being and doing. So in
Right.
order to be
Yeah.
do, you then get to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people kind of just skip the be and the do, and then they focus just on what they want to have without actually understanding that
Mm,
the universe and everything really is corresponding to what's being put out by
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So, and then getting clear on the have, is it might be you want to have a huge community, a loving family, you have a certain amount of income coming in, you have the ability to travel, do this, that, whatever it is that you want to have. And so
Mm, mm.
that be, do, have statement is really, yeah, really awesome. And you can keep it as simple as you want,
Yeah.
or as detailed as you want, but it is like a blueprint for how you kind of want to show up every day. And we
Yeah.
all, again, we
Mm,
all
mm.
we all kind of
Mm,
naturally, instinctively have this, but a
mm,
lot of people aren't conscious about what it is that they're choosing or how they're doing it.
yeah,
And so it's just a really good tool to sit down and have a look at and get clear with yourself again,
yeah,
so you have certainty on where you're going and what's
yeah.
inspiring to you. And 100%,
Mm,
I think you touched on
mm,
it earlier that you hadn't done it for 6 months. And as we
mm,
change, as we evolve,
yeah,
that will change too sometimes. Often,
yeah,
though, when you're really clear on you, the kind of some of those pieces will be foundational pieces that won't really change. It'll kind of stay with you based on your voids values, what you perceive was missing, that you're
yeah.
trying to fill, the things that you're instinctively driven to do.
Right.
But yeah, things definitely change over time as our life changes and as we get different situations that then affect what
Mm,
is most important to us. For example, if you go through a breakup or
mm,
you have
mm,
a near death experience or you have the birth of a child,
yeah,
these things are massive and they can
yeah,
literally reshuffle your priorities and values like instantaneously in a heartbeat.
yeah,
You often
yeah,
hear of people, for example, that
yeah,
have had a near death experience, an accident. They're like,
yeah,
my whole life kind of just flashed before me and that, and I've realized
yeah,
what's
yeah,
important to me. And all of a sudden, their value
mm,
system changed. Like, I can't believe I was ignoring this and I wasn't doing this with my
yeah,
family. And
yeah,
they have a much deeper sense of appreciation for areas that they didn't have before. Or if
yeah,
someone's
right.
gone through a breakup, they were
Mm,
inside a
mm,
relationship container and they had that. And then all of a sudden, there's a massive void there. There's a big piece missing where they had someone. And
yeah,
now all of a sudden, it's like they're seeking connection again. So now friends and socializing might come back up on their values, whereas it
yeah,
wasn't before
yeah,
because it was being filled by the one versus now needing to be
yeah,
filled by the many.
yeah. Seen that play out a few
Yeah,
times.
it's a
Yeah.
real common one, of
Mm.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I think, you see people that are in their flow and, there's a lot of sort of, it's kind of coaching speak, but I suppose what flow means to me is in that space where, everything's just unfolding for want of a
Hmm.
better word, and it's kind of to me almost like the be do have sort of aligned, they know what they want to be and who they're showing up as. They're in the flow of the doing. Obviously there's always going to be crap that comes up, but they're in the nice flow of doing. And then obviously the have is just rolling out the back end, which is whether that's success in business, sports, family, whatever it is. It's just sort of like this nice sort of congruent sort of flow going on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then you see it, or I know from personal experience when I haven't been in that flow, it's one of those things that's out of whack, like my expectation for having's way out of whack, or I think
Yeah.
I'm turning up, being a certain way, but I'm actually not,
Yeah.
and I think that's some of the thing I was talking about with, you know, and the family unit is, um, when you start really getting honest around actually how am I being and how am I
Mm,
turning up and having some
mm,
of the tools to be aware of that, it's pretty powerful experience,
yeah.
and life changing one. Mm.
Yeah, and again, I go back to what I just touched on before that
Yeah.
not one person is going to show up one side all the time. It's
Mm.
fucking impossible. And
Mm.
a lot of people place expectations on themselves that are unrealistic to do that.
Yeah.
And when they do so, it just sets them up for massive failure and self deprivation in the sense that they beat themselves up because they're trying to
Mm.
live into this one sided being that's impossible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think just really having the awareness that you are going to have ups, you are going to have downs in
Mm. Mm.
yourself based on energy, based on things that are happening, based on just different cycles,
Yeah.
and being okay with that when you are in that space
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
minimizing yourself and beating yourself up.
Yeah.
It's like a self acceptance and a greater sphere of awareness
Mm.
to
Mm.
just to love
Yeah.
of self up, but honor where you are at the time. Not saying you sit in a slump and you just stay there, but it's
No,
just
no. Yeah.
honoring and acknowledging yourself where you are at so that you then, from there, with compassion that you give yourself, you can
Yeah.
move yourself up out through that
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
because it happens
Yeah.
to all of us.
Yeah. Definitely. And I suppose, for example, choosing, like I'm still grappling with thinking about it live now, what I'm, I talked about turning up as a leader, what does it actually mean and what are those traits and stuff like that? I suppose one of them, though, is just, you know, um, loving self, accepting what you just said. There's going to be ups and downs, and
Yeah.
having that awareness and actually just being grateful and loving, to my own self. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
can turn up for myself first and lead myself through the
Totally.
dark night or whatever you call it, those scenarios that come through, then it's I can turn up powerfully. So I think, yeah, and you mentioned something about that yesterday. Do you want to share that? I thought that was really powerful about, I think one of your influences talks about showing up at home and then,
Yeah.
family. And do you want to touch on that? I thought that was
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
what you just kind of said too, I'm just going to link back there, was that
Yeah.
if you can't, for example, as you just touched on, lead yourself, then how can you expect to lead anyone else?
Mm.
Like it starts with us, right? And so
Yeah.
then also that self leadership is also is understanding self. It's
Yeah.
understanding self and having a level of awareness and introspectiveness that you can actually look at yourself and check in and see objectively why you're showing up the way you are, how you're showing up. And obviously, we all have blind spots, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you get, how advanced you get. We are in a human experience. I think we're a soul
Mm.
having a human experience, and part of that human experience is we have blind spots. And
Mm.
so,
Mm.
if you're committed to growing and evolving, which is what I've committed to for a long time now, it's one of my fundamental beliefs and why I think we're here, is to continue to grow and evolve and
Mm.
expand. Then you keep peeling these layers off as you go. Um, and
Yeah.
so to me, that's a really important piece to understanding self leadership. But when you talk about influence, I think that's the piece you're talking about. And it was, one of my mentors I've had for must be 18 odd years now, Dr. John Demartini. He had a kind of a mantra that he laid out. And this is not verbatim, but essentially, if you want to have an impact on your family and lead your family, you have to have a vision for your community. If you
Mm.
want to have an impact on your community, you have to have a vision of your region. And if you want to have an impact on your country, then you have to have a global vision. And if you want to have a
Mm.
global impact, then you have to have an astrological vision. You have to be able to take your awareness up and out, and have a huge awareness so that you can actually understand and see
Mm.
the globe in essence as your playground.
Wow.
And so,
Oof.
depending on where the size of your vision that you
Mm.
cast out will depend on the size of the impact that you have.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
powerful. I mean, applying that thinking to me, to the be do have, is quite a good framework, as in, like, where am I currently at? Who or what do I want to influence on that level, and then bringing that back to the be do have,
Mm.
and how I'm showing up, and it could just be that it's just a family thing for now. You know what I mean? For some
Yeah.
for
There's no
some
look. There's
people,
no
or
right
many
or wrong
people,
where
yeah,
someone
it's
wants to
just a
play.
work thing, or it's like a
Totally.
global thing. I mean, there's all different. For me, it's not a just to be clear, it's not a hierarchical thing. I think success and happiness comes from as a personal, subjective thing, and
100% it
is
is.
just as powerful as turning up, at home for your family for that next generation, as it is globe trotting around the world for something like, I don't know, a multinational group or charity or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's just they're
Yeah.
both as powerful as each other
Oh, you
because
hit the
they.
nail. You hit the
Mm.
nail on the head when you said
Mm.
success is subjective,
Mm.
100% subjective. Because you'll have one person that's got a major value on raising a family.
Yeah.
It could be a male or a female, the mum or the
Yeah.
dad, and for
Yeah.
them, they
Yeah.
just want to pour their love and energy into raising kids, and so their
Yeah.
time, their
Yeah.
energy, their focus gets devoted into that.
Yeah.
Whereas the other partner might have a real focus and love on wealth creation or building
Mm.
businesses or
Yeah.
travel or whatever it is. And so then when you look at that, they apply themselves in that area. It doesn't mean they love their kids any less. It just means that
Mm.
they have a value on something else just outside of that. Therefore,
Yeah.
their actions are going to be naturally pulled in order to achieve those things.
Yeah.
And so this is where the voids values work really well when you have a husband and wife or partners that are usually quite different. They kind of end up complementing each other because
Mm. Mm.
without one, you wouldn't have the strength in the other area and vice versa. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
whatever anyone chooses to do, this is the
Yeah.
important part. It's they're choosing to do it for them, not someone else, not
Mm,
subordinating to some outside authority, but to themselves. And
mm,
then really owning that, owning the shit out of it and going, well, this is me. This is what I want.
mm,
And this is how I define success.
mm,
And so as
mm.
long as it's coming from them, then
Yeah.
they're going to feel congruent and they're
Mm,
going to feel congruent with themselves,
yeah.
and it's going to change their vibration as well. It's going to raise their vibration because they're in
Mm,
alignment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a level of satisfaction that comes from that as well. I
Yeah.
think too often in society, it's just the way society's geared, obviously, because we have, fiat or money sort of in our lives, there's a whole element of success attached to that and celebrities and all this kind of stuff. But,
Yeah.
having kids, I just want to acknowledge the mums, I suppose, like it's really, for me, taught me how, like I see my wife sort of grapple with, she's a full-time mum at the moment. She's always got projects on the go, whether they're making a bit of extra money or impacting the community or whatever she's doing.
Mm.
But I've seen her, you grapple through that journey of also um, enjoying it. But society doesn't like. I want to celebrate that. I like to celebrate the fact that she's actually bringing up the next generation. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, actually, I realize now that to me personally, my belief is that that's actually more important, or well, equally as important as say me going and making money in the business world. Like I
Yeah.
know that my kids are being looked after,
Yeah.
and that she's doing a freaking amazing job
Yeah.
raising them up and teaching them, how to be powerful little individuals and, and to grow and to be powerful people, and I'm obviously contributing there as well. But to me, that's a huge definition of success personally. Maybe for others it's not, but for me, I've just, been learning that as well as part of this journey. And it's just like awesome.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh, look, and again, both you just said before,
mm,
but both bring the value, because
mm,
again,
mm,
say for example, you didn't have a value, and this is where we start getting to the masculine, feminine,
mm,
energies as well,
mm,
where it's, you know, it's more expected of. It's been changed a bit now because of
mm,
society and some engineering that I think has been done intentionally to depolarize relationships. But essentially, the man was the provider, the protector, right? If they're in the
mm,
masculine energy, the hunter, the gatherer, going out and bringing home the kill, the goods, whatever, so
mm,
that it can come back to the family can be looked after. That was the traditional masculine, and then the feminine's, in the home container, bringing up the children. So
mm,
both play their part. Again, it's
mm.
the polarity, the duality. You need
Yeah,
both. And
yeah,
so, for example, if you weren't out, hunting, gathering, if you
mm,
weren't out in the
mm,
business world, building business and bringing an income in,
yeah,
then your partner is not going to be able to have the ability or the same choices in a
mm,
way to create that container for the children where she can be
mm,
completely in her feminine and be at home bringing up the kids and be good with that and giving them the love and devotion that way.
mm,
So,
mm.
and then
Interesting.
they get to learn both, and they get to see and experience both masculine and feminine energy, which
Mm,
helps their development as well and gives them more choices. So
yeah,
both parts are
yeah,
just as important.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that part about life, the synchronicity and balance, and yeah, I think it's a really powerful realization. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, just I think um, for our listeners, what we'll attach to this video is a little bit more information about the be to have. And then I think pending um, permission, we might even share a little bit around the values, an explanation of values as well. So people can, if they're grappling with that, like I think the be to have is so powerful that it can
Mm,
actually, it's such a simple but powerful exercise for people to undertake, and we could do a whole nother video on it. And we should probably do a video actually where you could take me through it or vice versa or whatever.
mm.
But I think there'll be an attachment or a link here to that exercise. So I encourage people to work through that, really decide, what are we now? September 2023. Doesn't matter when you're
First day
watching
of
that.
September.
Yeah, first day of September, which is spring here in New Zealand. but is to work through that and just see what magic comes out of it. And then for me, I hang it up on the wall. I always have it in front of me or in a notepad, and regularly revisit that just to make sure that to check in, one, that it still resonates, which obviously I haven't done since in the last 6 months, but
Mm.
to check in that it resonates, and that I actually, to be honest with you, I do it once a year. The beginning of every year, I work through the Be to Have exercise, but maybe I need to move it into a 6 monthly process now.
Yeah, I think the other piece of that too
Mm,
is the values, is working out what your
mm,
priorities are. And I have
mm,
a method I use for that, which is something I've been using a while from my mentor. And
yeah.
it's uncovering what's actually demonstrated in your life
Yeah.
versus what you think or say it should be. And so
Yeah.
that there is really wise to get done, probably once a quarter as well.
Yeah.
Again, the underlying ones that generally have been there, like a lot of those values are created from childhood, and
Mm,
what you perceive as missing.
yeah.
Just to give you a really good example of that, is you'll often hear these rags to riches stories. Even that's something that we've heard, right? Rags to
Mm,
riches.
mm, mm,
And when you have a child that's come from absolute poverty, often, and they've perceived that money's been missing and it's been a big pain that money was missing, then their
mm.
number one value often
Yeah.
is to create wealth because they're trying to fill what was missing. And so
Right. Yeah.
those people later in life have not always, but often a massive value on wealth creation, depending on how they're
Mm,
associated to that and what they're connected to.
mm,
Um, and I've also found too, interestingly enough, people that have grown up in the kind of middle class, so to speak,
mm,
where there was no massive polarity, no massive thing missing around wealth. There was no, big void there.
mm.
Then they kind of just, again, cruise through in this kind of same area.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't, there's no real massive polarity that pulls them one way in the
Yeah.
void to create wealth.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, just on that, if something was missing massively and someone attacked with the meaning they gave it, that will often become one of the most important things for them to fulfill.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'll write that down down as another topic. Actually, I think that'll be really powerful to unpack in another episode. All right, everybody, we've got to wrap up now. Thanks for listening. We'll attach those exercises to the video. And as always, there'll be a link there to other activity that we've got going on. We're talking about setting up a community group for men to connect with each other. And also there'll be a link there to Mike's website if you want to reach out to him with any questions on anything. He's obviously a coach that covers off this stuff. So, well worth it reaching out to him, having a chat around any areas that you want to improve or work on Be to Have or whatever it might be. Awesome.
Awesome. Love our little chats and dialogues. It's interesting because what we've done, I think this is our fourth, fifth, sixth, maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
recording. And it's, just linking back to the start of this conversation, and we talk about consistency and stuff. We've been doing this consistently now. We've started like more than 6 weeks ago, getting things going.
Yeah.
But actually the recording, I think this is the fifth maybe recording or sixth recording.
Yeah.
And it's just innately, naturally want to do it because it's high on our values to do so. And so it makes it very easy just to jump in there because we're both inspired by it.
Yeah.
And so I'm I thought that was a good thing to link back in there, that, prior to this what didn't exist.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's this new action that we're doing on a weekly basis because both of us have the vision of what we want to create. We want to empower and help a lot of people.
Yeah.
And stepping into that space of, for me specifically, finally getting my brain and my perspectives out there on a grander scale is just really aligned to doing this.
Yeah.
And so it makes it very easy and effortless to step into it. So I'm enjoying our chats too. Like I actually really look forward to having these and just chatting because I love talking. I love speaking. I love breaking stuff down and pulling stuff apart. So again, when you find what you love and you allow yourself to do it without any of those stories, and that's where some of the inner work is really important to get some of those shadows, some of those blocks, some of those limiting beliefs out of the way. Yeah. And you allow yourself to truly shine and do what you love and impact the world. Yeah. It's a very, very beautiful feeling. It's a cool feeling. So, Yeah.
Definitely.
So
100% agree.
I'll leave it with that. But that was just something that came to me that, yeah, I have gratitude for.